Dr. Ilene Andrews, and she was in the first Godzilla vs. Kong movie, and she works at Monarch. In this movie, she's sort of in a much more senior position at Monarch. She's in charge of all things Kong related. She's also the character Gia's adopted mother. The story essentially centers on the idea that there is some sort of interference or signal emitting from somewhere that Gia is picking up on. And my job, both Ilene Andrews' job, both at Monarch and as her mother, is really to work out what it is and see if it's coming from something sinister or complicated. And so then the adventure begins. I think it's nice in this movie that there is a sense that I was really happy to capitalize on, that Andrews has a deep respect for Bernie Hayes. Like, yes, he's a eccentric podcaster and with the conspiracy theories and all the rest of it, but also he was a part of that crazy journey that she was on that saved the world. And he did some extraordinary things, and he has smarts about an area of expertise that she's also a part of. So, and I think, there's a sense also that, why doesn't he come and be part of it again? And so she is also, at a certain point in this movie, she is desperate for answers. And I think she has the wisdom to recognize someone who thinks outside the box might be able to see what everyone else isn't. So she goes to Bernie Hayes and she, says, I respect you, I think you're great, come and help me. Dr. Andrews is definitely more senior in Monarch this time. She's got more confidence, I'd say. I think she's a bit more boss these days. She's giving TED Talks and writing books, and she's on the cover of National Geographic and all that kind of thing, which is fun. It's fun to see her being successful and influential in the world, and sort of screaming at senators on the phone about how to deal with Hollow Earth and things. That's fun. I really had a very enjoyable time on the first movie, and I haven't had a lot of experience of sort of revisiting a world that I sort of played in before, and it's a really fun experience to come back to something, because there is an element of almost nostalgia, because you sort of remember the things that you enjoyed about the last one, but you also have opportunities to build on it and expand your understanding of the world, and also just really sort of dig down on character choices that maybe were just a sketch in the first one, and now you get to fully sort of explore in this world. In this movie, there has been an evolution of Dr. Andrews and Gia. I mean, time has gone by. She is now a teenager, and I think that you get to see some of the sort of familiar domestic dynamics between a mother and teenage daughter. It's definitely that moment when a child is sort of flirting with her independence in a much more extreme way, and the mother is sort of wondering about how much freedom they should give them versus how many boundaries they should give them. But of course, in this world, that's to do with monsters and saving the world, so it's a little bit different, but basically the same as every mother and daughter. And I think that, I think they've both moved on. She is definitely questioning her identity and who she is and how she fits into the world, and I think Ilene Andrews is trying to help support that and give her all the tools to be free and find that out, and whilst also being a bit worried about losing her, and in the way that any mother is. And I think that's really one of the sort of core sort of metaphors in the story, actually, is that relationship happening.
I play a character named Bernie Hayes, who you saw in Godzilla vs. Kong, who used to work for Apex, which was the company and, how do you put it, the all-seeing eye of everything Godzilla. He unfortunately discovered the truth about Godzilla and had to leave Apex, but he is also the one that kind of it's Team Godzilla, wants to help save the world with the help of Godzilla, and basically he is the conspiracy theorist, and every conspiracy he's ever come up with is right. Bernie is always right. Bernie is, I don't know, He's incredibly lovable. He doesn't have much to lose because at this point, you know, he's on his own. But, you know, he is a huge fan of the Titans. He is a huge supporter of the Titans. He loves to figure out what goes on, where they came from, why they exist, how they exist, and all these things. But he's, to me, the smartest one. Like, Bernie is the one that knows exactly what's going on. He really wants to, you know, in his own mind, I feel like he feels like he's a hero because of what he did with helping stop Mechagodzilla in the last film. We kind of find him in this film not as, I don't know how you put it, like he hasn't reaped the benefits of what the fame of being someone who saved the world should have gotten. So like, you know, he's still staying in his own place. He still has his podcast. But he's not getting the TED Talks. He's not getting the, you know, speaker deals that other people get. He's still trying to figure out where he stands after, you know, going through such a crazy, you know, almost world-ending event, extinction-level event. And he is still a believer of what he believes about Hollow Earth, about Godzilla, about the Titans, and he's still right. Most importantly, like everything that he thinks is still right. We are basically meeting after the huge versus battle between Godzilla and Kong. And what's happening now is that our young character, Gia, who we found, you know, she's an Iwi from Skull Island, but we find her now, she's a little older, and she's starting to receive messages. And so what I find about this particular movie is that we're going back to the beginning of everything, right? We're trying to figure out the source of everything. So she needs to figure out where home is for her. I feel like she's getting a beckoning call from home to figure out where her origin is from. And that also leads us to figure out the origins of Kong and Godzilla as well. And when we're figuring all that out, we're discovering the origins of other things as well. We're discovering that there are more Titans. We're discovering that there is a village that you know, our young character has emerged from. So this is kind of like going back. This is kind of like the origin story of how all of these Titans came to be. There's always going to be a battle. There's always going to be some kind of, you know, fight to the death, kind of who is the strongest, who is the smartest, who is the fastest. So we're meeting in that kind of conflict because I guess with most of us, when we try to figure out who we are and where we come from, there is a bit of a conflict, right? With like what we thought was true is not really true. And I think the fans are gonna love this just because I know I've always wanted to know exactly where the origin of these stories come from. Like, why do they exist? How did they come to be? And I think that this movie is going to dive a little deeper into that. As an actor in the film, I'm seeing new stuff every day. Like every day, I'm just like, oh, like it's a brand new level. And that's the genius of Adam Wingard, honestly, our director. I mean, it makes a huge difference when your leader is a fan of, you know, this kind of universe and is like excited by the discoveries of what could possibly be, what could unfold. I think the fans are going to be very excited. And what they should be even more excited about is that there's a lot of explosions. Explosions, what you're going to get the most of is explosions, sweat, screaming, bright lights. Like it's like a whole new thing. Like take Godzilla versus Kong and just like inject it with the most adrenaline you possibly can, and that's what this film is gonna be. It's great, like it's really fun, and a big part of that has to do with the cast. I mean, you know, the last film, Rebecca Hall and I didn't get a chance to pair up because she was Team Kong and I was Team Godzilla, so we had our own separate storylines. But this time, to watch the two of us get together, it's like a friendship that I knew I wanted but didn't know I needed. And so it's really great to watch the chemistry between Andrews and Bernie and how they both have survived the last feat between the Titans and how they were both very involved, and now they're actually making a choice to go. Like last time it felt like we had no choice. We had to make sure like the two of them wanted to fight and we had to figure out what that, but now we're like, there's so much empathy and care about these Titans, Godzilla and Kong. We really care about them very much. And so we're the ones who know the most about them. And, you know, when you take her headstrongness and my incredibly, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say, he's a kamikaze mission, Bernie. Like, he's a little bit all over the place, but the two of them really make a great pair. And we bring back Gia, Kaylee, who is basically like our guide, you know, like she is the one that has the she's the heartbeat of the story because she's so connected to Kong. If you want somebody who is going to have facts, who really knows exactly what he's talking about, who has studied this more than he should have, you know what I mean? Like, who is so engaged and so involved, you go to Bernie Hayes, man. Like, you want that guy. It's the one time that you want that crazy stalker fan to be on your side. Like, you want that guy that is really like sitting there cheering on Godzilla left and right and being like, this is what goes on here. This is how you want that guy on your team. I think this time around, the audience can actually care more about, you know, the human element. Because look, we all come to these movies to see the monsters, right? Like, we want to see the fights, we want to see the explosions, we want to see all of that. But I think what is really great about the MonsterVerse and what we're doing now is that you actually care about the people that care about the monsters, you know? Like, you actually feel like you can follow their journey, which is mostly in part to the actors, you know? Like, I mean, honestly, the way that Rebecca and Dan have taken to Trapper and Andrews, you just want to follow them, you know? And I always want the audience to feel like I'm speaking for them, you know? I want Bernie to be like their voice as well, of like how he goes into situations. I mean, it's like getting on that roller coaster that's opening for the first day, right? And you get the front seat. It's like that. I think that's where Bernie lives, honestly. Like, he's on a perpetual like theme park journey because he loves this so much. And look, Brian, I'm a fanboy of this. Like, I am a huge fan of Godzilla and Kong, and like, to honestly be a part of it is, it blows my mind every day that I get to come and play this way. I mean, every day that I walk on a soundstage or I see a set, I'm truly just like bursting with pride. Yes, Bernie is back. Thank God. You're welcome. You know, it's like I never left. It's like I literally like put a cot up and put, you know, I've been roasting marshmallows and hot dogs and waiting.
I play Trapper, who is a vet, or a veterinarian, I guess, who specializes in looking after titan creatures, big creatures, like Kong, like Godzilla. Trapper's he's a cheeky chappy who probably had a bit of a dodgy start to life and eventually got things together and trained as a vet. Yeah, he's fairly sort of happy-go-lucky. Nothing really phases him. He's fairly optimistic, bit of a joker. Yeah, it's very much a story about finding your roots, I think, and finding your origins, whether that's Kong or whether that's Gia. And I think there's a sort of a parallel story there that's really interesting to follow. And yeah, she brings a lot of heart to this particular tale. Yeah, you know, it's one of these sort of classic Hollywood movies, really, where you know, getting to play with giant imaginary creatures and you know, telling some jokes along the way. So, you know, I think it would be, you know, it's right up my street anyway, but it would definitely have been up the street of my 10-year-old self. There's some history with Dr. Andrews. We sort of get the sense that, yeah, they certainly knew each other at college. And he grows increasingly fond of Bernie as well, and I think they learn that they have more in common than they initially thought. You know, one of the things that I enjoyed about the last one of these was the sort of silent film that you get when you spend time with Kong, and the character that he was able to you know, create with CGI, and the sort of the characterfulness of Kong really starting to come across. And I think you'll see a lot more of that in this. And yeah, without giving too much away, I think, you know, there's about a third of the movie that is really in that sort of space, and is really wonderful to watch. And I think, you know, when you have fun on set, very often that shines through on the screen, and especially with a movie like this, I think, you know, audiences want to go and have fun and be entertained and enjoy the experience, to go on the ride with you, you know, and yeah, it really helps if you can have fun doing that, because, as I say, I think it transmits. Kaylee's incredible. To my shame, I've tried learning sign, and we've all had this app that's been teaching us, and I've been learning it slowly but surely. But I should apologise for not being better at it than I am. But yeah, her focus is incredible, and yeah, I think she does an amazing job on this. It's rare that you get a movie with such an ensemble in so many scenes, and you know, working with Brian and Kaylee and Rebecca, all of our sort of joint scenes, and Alex Ferns as well, just joining the gang. Just a lot of silliness and a lot of fun had on almost every scene that we've done together, really.
I mean, it's just so magical. I'm so honored to be part of the Monsterverse. I play the queen and the leader of the iwi people. We've met the iwis briefly in Kong Scout Island before, and this time we get to meet them at their home. I cannot wait to see the final film after it's done in its proper glory, how amazing these creatures will look like and how tiny and minute that we look like. It's gonna be so much fun. To be honest, sometimes I'm quite serious at work because I want to be focused and I want to do my work, and I sometimes need my space. But coming to this set, it's just impossible not to be sucked into this goofy energy between Rebecca and Brian and Dan, and all of them are just so goofy. They're always singing, they're always making jokes.
You know, in a lot of ways, this film's really about the origin of our world and the monsters' worlds. You know, we're gonna trace back, you know, where Kong's roots come from, and simultaneously we're kind of understanding the roots of human civilization as well through Gia's storyline. And so this film ends up being kind of an exploration of how the monsters got here, how the humans got here, and how to avoid sort of a mutual apocalypse between the two worlds. From the very beginning, my whole concept of this film was to not just show the audiences things and places that they'd never been before, but I wanted to stylistically take a whole new approach to these monster movies. I wanted this to be the first monster film where you actually get to fully realize and empathize with the monsters as a character. You know, when we did Godzilla vs. Kong, we started kind of flirting with the idea of having these sequences where the entire POV wasn't just through the human's eyes looking up at the monsters, but the monsters, specifically Kong especially, becoming the main protagonist of the film and having the film be seen through his perspective. You know, these MonsterVerse films aren't just about monsters. There's big sci-fi elements to it. You got anti-gravity vehicles. You got, you know, Journey to the Hollow Earth and these like kind of fantastic realms. And so having a better understanding of how to approach that kind of stuff has been really cool. Coming into Godzilla vs. Kong, that was the fourth film in the MonsterVerse series, and so to a certain degree, you know, as a director, you feel a little bit like a visitor, you know, like this is a whole world that's been set up and evolved over the course of these films, and you know, it's your chance as a director to put your stamp on it and do your thing, and then potentially pass it along. So when it came to the opportunity to do the fifth film, and for me the second film that I've done, it was really like an exciting thing because now not only am I just, you know, picking up where the last director left off, I'm able to continue sort of my vision and expand on it. So a lot of the colors, the tone, and even the approach to action and characters and the monsters themselves, you know, were really something that now I was able to continue forward and to have total authorship on, you know, myself. We didn't want this to just be a blue screen movie with a bunch of fantastic stuff happening behind them that would just be realized later. We wanted to get as much as possible real locations in it, and even shoot real locations for stuff that we would integrate into a Hollow Earth world, for instance. I mean, Hollow Earth is, you know, we shot plates in Iceland, in Hawaii, and even here in Australia. But, you know, this is a film that is traveling all over the world. We have stuff in Rome, Rio, and so forth. So we're getting all these different environments, and I think that that's really important nowadays. I mean, there's a reason why, like, James Bond movies, you know, always go all over the world. There's sort of like this there's just something to a film that has like sort of a, a real feeling of travel to it and reality within taking you to places that you've never been. And even though some of the places we're taking the audiences are totally fantasy, we want them to feel grounded in a way. And so utilizing real locations and those kind of things is a way of doing that. Daintree was a big challenge shooting there, but one that was definitely worth it. I mean, it was a couple hour hike every day, to get on set, and you had to go by ferry, and but you look at it on film, and some of the plants you see, some of that type of stuff are things that just don't exist anywhere else. And so because we wanted that ancient world feel to it, it was great to be able to almost literally go back in time at some of these locations, which have trees that have been around up to 2,000 years. I want to do a movie where kids feel like adults and adults feel like kids. I think that's the sort of secret sauce. When you make a movie like this, you're making it for giving the audience an experience, a really exciting adventure experience, and it's meant to be seen in the biggest screen possible. And so I'm hoping to sit there and eavesdrop and hopefully hear people, having a blast. Once you've seen Godzilla and Kong have like the most ultimate battle, like in Godzilla versus Kong, what's next, and the obvious answer is, the team up.
When we start this film, following from the end of Godzilla vs. Kong, Kong is in Hollow Earth. He's trying to figure out his place there, but he is also essentially almost like the guardian of Hollow Earth. Godzilla, on the other hand, patrols the surface. And we establish that there's a truce. As long as Godzilla stays on the surface and Kong stays down below, all's okay. If Kong comes up on the surface, Godzilla is not going to be happy, and vice versa, Godzilla coming down to Hollow Earth. However, as the film progresses, we discover that something's up with Godzilla. He's preparing himself for something. There is some imbalance in the world that we sense Godzilla is preparing himself to go up against. And Kong, through his journey, ends up coming up against that imbalance very quickly and has to go and get Godzilla to help him fight that imbalance, but has to first get past the animosity that the two of them have so they can get to a place where they can work together and fight this threat. And now, with this film, being able to evolve that with Adam Wingard, who had a really fun vision for how to bring both characters into the same film with Godzilla vs. Kong, we've been now able to evolve that, diving into some of the different elements that he first introduced in Godzilla vs. Kong, but also continue with that same fun tone, big adventure, big cinematic events with these two characters coming together. In this film, we take Gia's journey even further. Gia is the last of the Iwi people, or at least as far as we know, she's the last of the Iwi people who were lost in a tragic event on Skull Island. And she was adopted by Dr. Andrews, Rebecca Hall's character. And in this film, Gia goes deeper into discovering who she is. In at the top of the film, she's struggling a little bit. She's trying to find her place in the world. There are things happening to her that she doesn't quite understand. And through the film, on a journey with Dr. Andrews, Rebecca Hall's character, Bernie, who Tyree Henry plays, and Trapper, who's a new character who Dan Stevens plays, they go into Hollow Earth to try and discover what's happening to Gia, and through that discover much more about herself, about her and her people. One of the central themes of this film, both for the human characters, but also in a way for the titular characters, the creature characters, is that family is where you find it, family is what you make of it. Through the film, both Gia and Kong on some level go through a journey of discovery and finding who their families are. We were incredibly fortunate to find Kaylee Hottle and to work with her in Godzilla vs. Kong as Gia. She's a young deaf actress. She's extraordinarily talented. Our casting director, Sarah Finn, first found her, and when Adam first met with her, we all knew immediately that she was our Gia. There is a new character in this film called Trapper, who's played by Dan Stevens, who is an incredibly fun, he's a monarch creature veterinarian, like a cryptozoologist, who studies the creatures, works with the creatures, looks after the creatures. There's some fun stuff where Kong needs some help in this film, and Trapper's able to step up and bring a new expertise that we haven't yet seen from Monarch. I'm happy to say that Adam Wingard has brought some really fresh, big, fun visual energy into Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. Tonally, the movie is a lot of fun, but yet there are these big, massive worlds we get to explore with these two characters of Godzilla and King Kong, and we really see more of the movie through their perspectives than we have before. One of the really fun things in Godzilla vs. Kong was getting to bring both characters into the same MonsterVerse film for the first time, and we really got to see them go mano a mano against each other, the strengths and the weaknesses of each as they fought. In this film, Godzilla X Kong, they come together again, but have to work together against a greater threat. And that, of course, brings its own challenges. It doesn't go well at first. There ends up being, of course, some big fight sequences between them. But as they go forward and confront an even greater threat, they work together in a way that's really satisfying, where we get to see them work together against a common foe, along with some other surprises who come into the film as well. Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire is a big, fun popcorn movie with larger-than-life characters, both monster and human. It's a really fun ride where we go to places we haven't seen before. We go into parts of Hollow Earth that are just extraordinary and colorful and really fun and welcoming. And of course, there's danger and action and destruction as there are in these movies, but it's got a really fun, good-natured sensibility to it. Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire is a big, fun, cinematic adventure. It's a perfect movie for a family. It's got something for everybody. We've got big set pieces with great monster action, but we've also got an incredible emotional journey about a little girl who's connecting with her lost people, with King Kong, who discovers that he's not the last of his kind, that there are others like him, including a young ape named Suko, who we think audiences are really going to connect to, and of course Godzilla, who is maintaining a balance and protecting us.